All guests appear by the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Geoff Mosher, FanRag Sports, was at the parade yesterday. Give us a little perspective on his vantage point and his...
How many people does he think were there?
Yeah, who the hell cares? Is winning Super Bowls the new norm? He writes about that at FanRagSports.com. And he joins us now on 97.3 ESPN. All right, Moshe, what was your were you there just taking it in? Were you in the media section? How were you absorbing this yesterday?
I was just there with my family, with my wife and daughters. I was around the Broad, Oregon area, just kind of taking it in. I purposely wanted to do that instead of do the old media thing because I figured I would see and hear about the press conferences. I wanted to do a scene piece for FanRag Sports, which I did. You can read it now online, FanRagSports.com. So I was there in the thick of it.
You know, a lot of people were calling in all week, texting in about it didn't hit them, it didn't hit them. It seemed that yesterday is when it hit a lot of people. What was kind of the feeling of the people in the area that you were around?
Well, it was a euphoria like I haven't seen here, Mike. I mean, it was unbelievable. I think it was everything we've all pictured for a long, long time. What would a parade down Broad Street for the Eagles look like? What would it feel like? How big would it be? And, you know, I think you said it best. Who cares what the estimated number was? It was just an unbelievable event. And I do agree with you. I think that the reality of it eluded people. It's like they just, you know, until the parade, you know, you knew the Eagles were Super Bowl champions. Some people still had trouble just even saying it. But then to watch it in their hometown, down the street, seeing everybody there, the big party that everybody's been waiting for, I think it finally hit people yesterday when it happened.
Yeah, I know you wrote in there it was like a Woodstock-type atmosphere where people were just hugging and dancing and just kind of embracing. You know, it certainly...
Just a little colder.
Yeah, exactly. But it certainly seemed that regardless of where you were standing, whether it was back at the stadium, down Broad Street somewhere, or up by the Art Museum, that everybody was taking this all in the same, whether you could hear the players, see the players. It was just the notion of this parade... Like, Super Bowl Sunday is the game for the players, but that parade is for us, the fans. And that was kind of the moment that it really set in for a lot of people, I think.
Yeah, I think the championship itself, you know, Sunday, the amazing victory, I consider that like the 5-scoop Sunday that you might get at Friendly's, right? And then the parade is the cherry on the top. It's the completion of it. It is the extra little morsel that you're looking for that just completes everything and makes it completely perfect. And it's nice to have something like that happen on Sunday and be able to, you know, for me, myself being on the airways also, you know, just to hear people's stories. People came from every single state you can imagine to be there. And there were people who couldn't be there who were living vicariously through friends and family members who could. And that's what kind of made it special, is that it's, and again, I think we imagined this many, you know, if it were to happen, that it wouldn't just be a win and a party and a parade. It would be something that people talked about for a long time and something that's probably life-changing for a lot of people. I think when you see people crying, you know, grown men crying, people crying, I can only think that that's an emotion that's based on, A, just the ultimate elation of the event, but also, B, because I honestly believe, you know, having talked to enough people about this and experienced it myself and my family and things like that, I think that a lot of people, Mike, never really believed that the Eagles would win a Super Bowl in their lifetime. So when it actually happened, it kind of turned their world upside down and it challenged their belief, you know. And so if you take even a child who discovers, you know, at an early age that certain people may not exist or certain things that they thought were real aren't, you know, it's kind of like a cultural experience for them that they may or may not be ready for, and they're getting emotional about it. And that's how I kind of relate it to this. It's just, I think a lot of people were convinced that they were never going to see this day happen. And then when it happened, it kind of opens up their eyes and to things that they didn't think could happen. And, you know, that's where you get that outpouring of emotion. I think it's pretty awesome.
Geoff Mosher with us. So, Geoff, is this the new norm, as Doug Peterson has said a few times? Should Eagles fans be ready for more of these?
You know, I know the new slogan will be, you know, win it for Wentz or clinch it for Carson, as I like to say. They certainly bring back a lot of players. The only thing, this team was different and unique. You guys know that. I mean, what they did was beyond just being a talented team and winning a Super Bowl. I mean, they overcame a tremendous amount of adversity. They also were bonded and unified like no team I've ever seen before. So to replicate that in years going forward is going to be difficult. Like, they can win championships, but I don't think it'll ever be as significant as what you've seen over the last week. However, I mean, they do have a good team, and the guys talked about, making sure that the front office continues to develop, to assemble the roster with these kind of players in mind. And, obviously every year will create its new hurdles and obstacles and everything like that. And like I said, you won't be able to replicate this year. This was not a season. This was a story. So this is not a story that you're going to find a sequel to. It's unique in its own way. But that doesn't mean that the Eagles can't be successful and win Super Bowls. And obviously bringing back Carson Wentz and bringing back a lot of these starters will certainly put them on the course. But, Aaron Rodgers, man, he's one of the greatest to ever play the game, and he's only been there once. And I'm sure he thought he'd be back many, many times. So you have to have a lot of things go the right way.
Now, Geoff, athletes always say, well, I don't read the papers or I don't listen to the criticism or all that, but that uniqueness you talk about, that bonding, that unification was made pretty clear by Jason Kelce yesterday that they did read and they did listen to the media and the criticisms as he gave that epic speech.
Yeah, Jason Kelce, everybody knows, Pete, is a really, really smart guy, and he really knows how to play to his base. You know what I'm saying? So it was a great speech, and I loved it, and everybody loved it, and it's exactly what every Eagle fan wanted to hear. Was there a little bit of hyperbole in there? Yeah, probably, but it doesn't matter because much like, Hulk Hogan, in the 80s or 90s, just kind of firing up all the little Hulksters out there, that's what Jason Kelce was doing, and he did an unbelievable job of it.
Now, he got you, too, didn't he, Moshe? He found a tweet that you had about Bo Allen. He even included you.
Well, he's got a memory like an elephant, I guess. I mean, that tweet was from almost 2 years ago, how I thought that Bo Allen wouldn't fit the scheme. And I laughed when I heard him just going through player after player after player, and he said, Bo Allen doesn't fit the scheme. I'm like, man, that was my tweet from 2 years ago. No, I kid. I'm sure that's not exact. A lot of people felt that way about Bo, but I'm man enough to have retweeted it and called myself out. It's all fun. It's all good.
Yeah, I know, that moment where he just basically let it loose, and it felt like the team, at first it was kind of like, Howie's face was like, what's going on here? Doug, like there was this uncomfortable feeling, but then they kind of like, you know what? We're going to embrace this because, that, as you just said, it wasn't a season. It was a story that started back in 2013, though, really. This story started back then with Chip Kelly and Nick Foles. Foles having this storytale season.
Yeah.
And we talked about this a week or two ago when we were on, and that fairy tale started in 13, and it ended yesterday.
It really did. It really did. This has been a building block kind of, or a multi-stage development for this to happen. And, you can look back on it and you can find, hundreds of little things that contributed to why the Eagles were Super Bowl champions and, going to get Carson Wentz and making certain moves and bringing in people like Joe Douglas and, really, I mean, it's a rare deal to be able to look at every single player on the roster and say, you know what, if they didn't have this guy, I don't know if they'd do it, right? So, yeah, I mean, and I can't help but think of Kelce kind of, even though most everything he was saying was true, it still felt like Belushi a little bit in Animal House, right? Where everybody's like kind of shocked what he's saying, but then they're like, just let him go with it. Let him go with it. It's working.
I wondered if there were more guys that were supposed to talk and they figured after that, that's enough.
No way,
all right, we've had enough. Because Ertz was like, what am I supposed to say after that? And then it was kind of like over. That was it. The whole thing was only 25 minutes long. That was it. From start to finish, it was about 25 minutes. They got in, they got out. I mean, I thought Roseman spoke for 40 seconds, I think it was. I mean, he was in and out of there. Peterson didn't last long. I mean, it was a quick kind of get them in, get them out, and it's all in the book. The 2017 season is now officially done, and that means the offseason's ahead. Obviously, the Foles thing is looming, but what is the biggest decision other than that for Howie Roseman?
Oh, man. It's hard to say what is the biggest decision. There's going to be a lot of them. Obviously, free agency, more about the guys he's going to be able to keep versus the guys he's going to have to let walk. Trey Burton is going to be a free agent. He's probably going to get a deal from someone. He's a good tight end who's buried on a team full of good tight ends. You've got Nigel Bradham, who I think you really got to re-sign because they just don't have great depth at at linebacker, and he's been a really important player, but he may get a really good off. The team is tight against the cap. So while they can clear space by releasing certain guys or restructuring, still there's a bunch of guys who are third-year eligible for their contract extension for the first time. Ronald Darby is one. Jordan Hicks is one. I mean, Jordan's been injured a lot, so what do? Jay Ajayi is another one. Nelson Aguilar is another one. It's really, just like this team was so balanced. It had so many different role players who contributed to a Super Bowl. It's hard to just find that one thing that Howie's got to do this year. In the past, you'd be like, oh, man, they really need a wide receiver. Go get Terrell Owens or something. This year, there's just going to be many, many layers of kind of trying to keep this thing intact. So, I think a big thing they're going to have to do is take care of Joe Douglas. I think he's probably going to need, and from some things that I'm hearing, who probably will be promoted to the GM title just to keep him from having to go somewhere else to get that recognition. Obviously, they'll have to figure out who's their quarterback coach. That's very important. I know Mike Rowe has been mentioned. An assistant who's also the assistant quarterbacks coach named Press Taylor is a guy that I think will probably get some looks at that. So there's a lot of things. There's, free agents, draft, everything. I really don't know if I can pick one thing and say it's much more important to get this situated more than another. I do know that, and I think we all know that Derek Barnett has to start next year. So second year, and he's a good player. And you've got Vinnie Curry and Brandon Graham right now as your starting defensive end. So unfortunately, this is the price of winning. Something's got to give, and I don't know what's going to happen there, but it's going to be a tough decision for Howie.
The offseason will be all over it. Geoff Mosher at Geoff Mosher NFL, FanRag Sports. Check out his coverage of Super Bowl 52. Mosh, thanks, pal.
Got it, guys. Talk to you soon.